Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lights Too Bright podcast. For those of you who are returning, and actually for those of you who are here for the first time, please do like, share, and follow. It just makes it look better on my numbers. Today, I'm very lucky to have managed to get some time with my guest who is really busy. He's always running around. And for as long as I've known her, she's always seemed to have been running around and always busy. So she's managed to carve out 45 minutes of her precious time to share her fantastic story with us today. I don't really want to say anything because I think it's amazing to have someone within the industry to get to where they have, and the way they've done it is so different, and it's really quite inspiring for those who maybe are a bit stuck or don't know which route to take. So without saying anything else, I would like to say hello and good morning to Nicola Bennett. Morning, Nikki.
Morning, Keyur. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. My wife has gone into London today, so this morning I got up and I had to deal with both the kids, and then literally I walked the little one to school, and then today's the day the teacher didn't want to open the door, so I'm waiting there looking at my watch going, I've got meeting,
Yeah.
I've got meeting. But
Always
it's all
right.
right, it's good. Yeah,
You
yeah,
survived.
sod's law.
You're here.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for inviting me
right.
on.
No, you're welcome. And I've told you this. I've always been fascinated by your journey, because I know a fair bit of it, but I think it's something that's really interesting for the audience to hear in terms of diversification and just what you can achieve, even if you don't necessarily have, like, I know, the correct certificates to go with it. And you do so well, and you're such a nice person. So I thought, right, Nikki has a fantastic journey. Let's share that story. So to start off, for the audience who do not know you, um, what is your current role? So what do you do at the moment?
Okay. So at the moment, I am head of global education for clinical information for Keeler, who are based in Windsor in the UK. So that entails me training the distributors, the end users, and also internal staff, anyone really who needs to know how to use Keeler products globally. So there's myself, and there's a lovely gentleman in the US called Shane, who's on my team. And together we look after the world alongside all of the other Keeler employees to make sure everyone is able to use our equipment properly, effectively, and make the most of it.
So, that's a pretty big role. Keeler, for those who don't know Keeler, and I'm sure many people do, you can't be in optometry, ophthalmology without knowing Keeler. They're well respected, been around
A long time,
for,
over
for
100 years.
ages.
Yeah,
Yeah,
over
been
100.
around for ages, and globally renowned product that they produce, which is fantastic. So it's probably a big role. I would say it's an important role for them. And the real reason why I wanted you on, Nikki, was because of how you got here. Okay, so
I
just
laugh at that actually every day, so you're fine. I still ask the same question. How am I here? Why am I doing this amazing role? But yeah, it's a pleasure to do it.
I mean, it just shows how, like, dedicated you are, and how talented you are to be able to develop and progress and keep progressing, and not reinvent yourself, because you've not had to reinvent yourself, but professional development. And that's the message that the pod's really about: professional development, keep moving forward.
Yeah,
And again, I don't want to step on your toes. I'm going to stop talking.
you're
So,
fine.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
So where are you based now? So I know you work for Keeler, but home is...
So home is in Banbury, so Oxfordshire. So, and office is obviously Windsor. Predominantly, if I'm in the UK, then I would be in Windsor, or I would be somewhere in the world where they are needing education events or training.
Okay. Has
Depends
Oxfordshire
what part of
always
Europe.
been home? Is that
Pardon?
where you grew up? Has Oxfordshire
Yeah,
always been home? Is that where you grew
yeah,
up?
yeah. So Oxfordshire always been home. Went to primary school here. Went to secondary school. My children went to the same primary school, same secondary school. And I originally actually went to college in Banbury after doing GCSEs. Didn't well, I did get GCSEs. My mum describes me as a mixed bag, if that's such a thing, because I got really excelled in some of subjects and then sort of unexcelled in others. So, but luckily did get enough to do what I planned to do, which was to do childcare. So I actually started my career as a nursery nurse. So I did my diploma in nursery nurse education, so teaching, but right from newborns all the way up to age 8 is what my qualifications in. And to be honest, I loved that job. Absolutely love it. Still love it. Still do.
Well, you work with people in the eye care industry, so it probably is like dealing with children most most of the time. So no aspirations to be in eyes, to be in the medical field. No one in the family kind of went,
No,
this is a good route to take.
no, it wasn't even on my radar, to be honest. The only thing that's always been on my radar is to be a nurse. So I've always wanted to end up, I always say, and my children will tell you this, when I'm really old and grown up, then I'd like to be a nurse. It's not something I want to do all the time now, but I've always wanted to end there looking after people. Um, but actually, I'm inspired to just work with children. I love being with children. I did babysitting. I did all my babysitting courses, at the age of 14, first aid, things like that. So I was quite keen to try and do anything that was taking care and looking after people, I suppose, but specifically around the childcare age. After my diploma, I sort of went into a nursery. I did develop quite quickly in nurseries, to be honest. So I was working in a small nursery, then I went to a larger nursery. I became deputy manager of a nursery. So from anything from 16 places all the way up to 34 children at one time. So always kept me busy. I had a nannying business on the side that I did as well. So we used to travel with families or go and stay at people's houses. So I was always on the go, shall we say.
Yeah. So I mean, this explains a lot. Remember when you were kind enough to invite me to Glasgow for eye
You
care,
called
and I
me your
went,
sister.
yeah, and I went, Nikki, you're like the sister that I haven't had, because you just basically organized everything, made sure I
Mm,
got everywhere, made sure I was like fed
yeah,
and housed, and
that's
now it all
probably
makes
been
sense.
schooled from there. Yeah,
Yeah, now I get it. It's like, well,
yeah,
here's the child that I've been
yeah,
forced to babysit for the
yeah.
next 2 days,
I was trained to
and
look
there we
after you,
go.
Keyur, that's what happened.
Yeah,
I was trained on that time. Yeah,
all
but yeah,
makes sense. All makes sense.
all makes sense. But no, nothing around eyes, nothing around. I've always had an interest in the clinical element. So even when I was doing my nursery nursing, oh, like in the section where we were talking about I went into hospital actually, and I did play therapy as well for a bit. So I really love that. So being in the medical, talking quite nicely with the clinicians, things like that. So yeah, I've sort of had a little bit of a spark, I suppose.
So then, how did you? Oh, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say it. Why did you step away from childcare?
Yeah, well, I didn't
Uh,
want to actually. It was I had a back operation after having. Well, actually, no, there's a little bit of a lie because I did some travel at the same time. So I did childcare and I was a travel agent at the same time. So I worked for Thomas Cook. So I did customer service, I did selling, but I still worked in the nursery on as well, and I did Thomas Cook at the weekend when I was sort of crossing over. So it wasn't the fact that I ever sort of left completely. I was always still doing a bit of the two because no one really wanted me to leave. I think that was, and I didn't really want to leave. So I was like, I did. So I've done some travel. So hence where the sales piece of me probably comes in a little bit. Actually, I worked at Cooks for 7 years, so I did quite a lot of travel if we look at it that way. Show my age a bit, but I actually had to have a back operation. And when I had the back operation, it was just after my youngest daughter, who's now nearly 15, was born. And they told me I couldn't work with children anymore. If I wanted to protect my own self and be able to look after the children. She was 3 months. Then I basically couldn't work in the nursery. So I was in maternity leave at that time. And it was at my daughter's christening. I told my boss then, who I'm still very good friends with to this day, that I need to leave because she was a small nursery. If I'd have stayed, it would have eaten her alive, paying me maternity. So I'm going to have to go, and I'm going to have to find a job where I don't have to lift. I don't have to basically do anything. If I went back to Thomas Cook, it was about brochures, lugging them up the stuff. So I couldn't do any of that. So I was like, actually, I just need to find a job where maybe I'm just a receptionist. And that's what I did.
Okay. And that's how you end up in
So
Peepers.
so I went out, looked for jobs as a receptionist, and I saw one for Peepers, Opticians, and went for an interview. Met Anne and Eddie, who are like my work mum and dad. They will still say that to this day. I'm very, very privileged to work for them. But yeah, I've met them. We kind of clicked instantly. And I was like, "Oh, I don't really know anything about eyes at all. I don't know nothing at all." And they were like, but I said, I'm really good with customers. I said, I love to help people. So it'd be really good to have a go. Was only part-time, so working 3 days a week. And yeah, they offered me the job, and I started in June.
Okay.
So quite a while
And
ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I can't remember
Yes,
when
I've
I
been in the industry
worked.
some time.
Yeah, I can't remember when I worked up the road. I can't remember what years I was there. So I spent a bit of time up the road from you guys, Wolford and
Okay.
Round.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's where I used to go, actually. So there's a little story around that. I used to go to Wolford and Rounds, and the ladies on reception, who are actually still there to this day, some of them, they used to let me sit behind the reception desk when my mum was having her eyes tested. And I used to sit at the reception drawing on their like notepads. So when I started at Peepers, they said to me about that. They're like, "Oh, your dream came true," but it wasn't the fact it was just something that I used to do because I was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I want to get involved." Yeah, can't sit still, obviously.
I think
So, yeah,
and that's the nice thing about like the profession for the most part. People are quite friendly to each other,
yeah, they
and
are.
people remember these things.
Yeah, they do, and I
So
think, yeah, important.
yeah,
That's a big
what
element. That's
was
a big part of my story, actually. The people,
yeah,
big part of the journey.
what was your development then within Peepers? You went in as a receptionist, and then
So I went
like
in as a receptionist, soon
yeah,
found a sort of flair that I really enjoyed it. The staff there were amazing as well. Obviously, had been there for a long time, so they were really keen to teach and obviously for us to help. And then Eddie had always said to me, actually, interestingly, when I first got there in my first sort of week or so, "Oh, we're getting an OCT coming through, actually. It may be something that you quite like to have a go with, in the future, but, let's get you sort of trained up on other stuff first." So I started as reception. And to be honest, Kate, I remember sitting there on reception thinking, "Oh my goodness, how on earth am I going to remember all of this?" Because sitting on reception is not just sitting on reception in an optical practice, you know? It is so intense because you've got obviously people ringing up for contact lenses. You've got people ringing up for obviously they may have an issue with their eye and you need to sort of triage them. You've got people who have broken their spectacles. You've got someone who's got trauma. It's never ending. And then you've obviously got all of the people, frame suppliers. So you're having all these different conversations. If you're ringing up to even confirm an appointment for the next day, you had to go through so much, asking them questions, making sure they bring in the contact lens of the specs, things like that. That was a bit crazy, but I enjoyed it. It gave me a good grounding, but I did want to learn more. So I did went to be an optical assistant. So I did my worshipful company of spectacle makers. I did their course, which is optical support and practice. And that was a really good grounding because it gave me so much learning on the anatomy, about lenses, the science behind the glasses, frame styling, customer journey. It really did. It was intense, but it was really good. It gave me a lot of information. And I found that quite hard because I'm not massively academic. I definitely wasn't then. I think I've applied myself to learning when I'm interested. That's definitely what's happened. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned. And I teach my children to this day is that if you really love something, you'll learn it because you're interested and you want to know. And that's really important. So yeah, so I did my optical support practice. Then I started doing a bit of the dispensing, like playing with the decimeter a bit more, frame styling. Then it got into pre-screen. So I did pre-screening, doing visual fields, and then obviously having a go on the OCT. And that was where I found a little bit of a passion and a little bit of a flair, shall we say, on taking images, making sure what I was doing. I think the biggest thing for me in this journey was knowing that whatever Anne needed, we had to try and deliver. She was so busy that we had to try and make sure that the patients were prepped and ready, everything was done that needed to be done for her. But also when they came out, we needed to be ready to accept them, help Eddie with frame styling because he may have another patient, and do the dispensing. So it was a lot about plus answering the phone and dealing with everyone that walks in the door all at the same time. So it was a lot of juggling. I think that was important. But the OCT is probably where I found a massive passion because it really helped, and to extend her clinical diagnosis, I suppose, with what was going on with the patient. I enjoyed trying to get the capture correct and right and to be able to get a decent image. And then I started to become really like, oh, that's interesting. And I was starting to go home and look up things and looking more into the anatomy, reading more research papers, spending my own time doing my own learning outside of work, even though I had two young children, and it just was something I was really enjoying and I loved. But I also loved the element of being able to help the patient, and that the two things sort of installed my passion, I suppose, even more than what it was there just from the very beginning.
Fine. So, I mean, that's and a lot of, and we've spoken about this before. I think I've spoken about this before on the pod. A lot of optometry, what you learn in university and things like that is just the grounding.
Hmm.
Beyond that, progression comes from finding your passion, finding your niche, and then really trying to excel in it. And then, but to do that, you have to, read a book in your own time and want to keep up to date with the latest and greatest. Because
Yeah.
if you try and rely on what the introductory stuff at university, wherever college and stuff is, if you stick with that, you there is no progress.
No, and I
And
think that's right. You just don't. You will never develop any further unless you really put more effort in yourself. So I think that's something that I've learned. But it didn't come easy, so it was hard. But I think it's a really important thing to note that you can do it, but you can do it in your own time as well by doing it that way.
yeah, and I mean, just to talk about optometry in particular, because obviously that's my bag, you can take your time. There there
Mm.
there are there are so many opportunities to diversify just your knowledge base. Let's just say you're staying as an optometrist, but you want to learn more, you want to be better. There are so many opportunities to learn and develop at your own time,
Mm.
but it's about finding the time.
Yeah, I think.
And
Mm.
you just got to be in that situation where you can't complain about things if you don't try and make it happen yourself. You do have to make it happen yourself.
Yeah, I think that's right. And when I was in the practice, it was like, what, where else am I going to go here? Because I really loved this, but I loved being with Anne and Eddie. They were so supportive. The team were great. It was the most amazing experience working at Peepers. The patients were great. But also it showed me a lot of what I could do, maybe potential, and they really believed in me. I think that's something they saw something in me that I don't think I saw in myself, if I'm quite honest. And they were kind of sort of suggesting that, what else do you want to do? We could do dispensing. Do you want to do a dispensing degree? Not really. I didn't really fancy being an optom, although Anne was like, you could be an optom. It definitely could happen. You could progress if you wanted to, or management. There's all these different choices that you can have when you're actually an optical assistant. You actually could develop into so many different ways. But at the time, I was a mum, to be honest, so I wasn't probably really thinking about that. Because they were young. I was working 3 days a week. I upped my days, so I did up my clinical days. Um, and then I saw a job actually at Oxford Eye Hospital as a nurse, as an ophthalmic nurse. And I applied, was mortified because I actually got the job.
Okay.
told Anna Lady, yeah,
Yeah.
said I was going to leave, went through all the process of like, going in and sort of getting my start date and going through all the kind of forms, and many forms that you have to go through to work in the NHS, and told them, and they were mortified that I was leaving. So in the end, I didn't. I didn't go. I didn't leave. But and there's part of me now is like that was a bit of the nursing thing. It would have been crazy actually, as we know, but it would have been good. But it didn't happen, and it didn't happen for a reason. I think I still now believe that. Now I look at my journey, it was the right decision not to go.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So then what happened next? Where did you go? What did you kind
Well,
of peak out on in terms of what
well,
you could achieve at Peepers, or
I think no, it wasn't
did you
even
get
that. The
bored?
OCT, no, the OCT thing was really still installing me. So Anne said, "Why don't you come to a TopCon conference with me?" So I came to. She said, "You could, gain some more knowledge. You're reading it yourself. Why don't you come?" So I went to a TopCon conference, which was great. Loved it. Met the TopCon team, and saw what they were doing with the OCTs. Teaching, training, presenting on OCT, and all the other products that they have. And yeah, it kind of inspired me a little bit more. So I sent an email to TopCon and sort of showed a bit of interest about potentially, could this be something that there was something in the future I could come and help with or support. It wasn't like asking them for a job necessarily. It was just a bit of a reach out. Like, if you're doing a conference, I'm happy to come and, support and show people how to do tips and tricks or whatever. And from there, I actually then went for an interview, and that's where I got my job at TopCon as the clinical specialist for them in, when was that? God, 2017 or 2018, one of those.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so that I didn't know that. I didn't know you'd reached out just in
Yeah.
kind of like, well, I'd like to learn some more. If you've got some opportunities for me just to kind of stick around and maybe do a bit.
Yeah, so
Um,
it was a bit of Anne, you know what Anne's like. Anne was like, "Go on, send a message. You'd be great. You could go and help them like at an event or something." So I did that. She obviously knew Top Gun very well, and yeah, and it just sort of went from there. Then they had a job that was available, so I applied for the job. Didn't actually think for one second I'd even get an interview. To be fair, got an interview, and when they took me on, obviously I had my clinical support practice from Worshipful Company, but I didn't have any other qualification. I, when they took me on, they said, obviously I shared my passion about OCT. I then started my foundation degree in OCT interpretation and capture at that time with them.
okay,
And that's how I did my degree.
fair enough. So that's but so what I'm
It was
seeing through,
bad,
yeah,
bad
but
time.
what I see for all of that is the fact that you've just reached out. You've kind of prompted that next change. And it's worked. I think as someone from the outside looking in, that's worked well for you. I think
Yeah,
you
I
made
think it
that
made me.
change.
Yeah, I mean, I joined a team at TopCon who were, I mean, they're brilliant. I know all the girls and the team there still today, and they became great friends. And I was lucky to work with them because they all had so much knowledge. And I think if you don't reach out and you don't sort of make that, I don't know, sometimes it's an email, sometimes it's a text message. I mean, I probably do that more now because I know a lot of people in the industry. And what's the harm in asking, right? If you don't ask, then you're never going to know. So I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons for me is that there's all these people that are there and prepared to help you. And if they see that maybe you want to do well, you want to develop, because I know I've had people now approach me and say, "Hey, I'd like to do this." And I'd be like, "Right, okay, brilliant. Let's see how we can work together." Because that's important, and it, who knows where it leads you.
I mean, a recurrent theme throughout all of these pods that people have been kind enough to come on has been how nice the profession is.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn something, not eight, maybe 9 out of 10 people, you can ask them and go, look, can I just come and sit in? And they will say, sure.
Yeah.
You've obviously have an interest and you are taking your own time, because we can't necessarily pay someone to come and sit in clinic, but you're prepared to take your time to come and sit in a clinic and just watch and learn,
When
please,
I
come and see
yeah,
how, if we can inspire you to do more
exactly.
things.
And when I did my ACT degree, obviously I was doing, so I had a full-time job with Topcon. I had an area, so I started at the Topcon looking after the southwest. So it's like a banana shape. I did central and then southwest. And actually, when I was doing that, I was still, that's full time. You travel as we do, doing your degree, but I had to get clinical cases. So the only way I could get clinical cases for my degree was to be working on a Saturday. So I worked on a Saturday in a hospital, a private hospital in Milton Keynes. So I did that every Saturday morning throughout most of the majority of my first sort of couple of years at Keeler. And, that's, if I hadn't have done it, I wouldn't have got the cases I need to do the learning. So it's a lot of time you install, but those people were willing to help me. They're like, okay, yeah, you can come and sit in the clinic, you can take the images, we'll send them then on to an ophthalmologist who will look at them. Um, and that came from relationships. I think if there's something that I'm good at, probably you can see from here is talking, um, and networking and making conversations, but not only to get things from other people, but for me to see what I can do to help them. And that's really my biggest aim is what can I do to try and help. And if I'm really honest, my whole journey has probably started in eye care from seeing those patients in the practice, being told they couldn't see, being told they needed to go off to the hospital. And it's like, what else could I be doing that could help them? And that, and the applying, obviously, of education, teaching, training has come into that.
Yeah, and that is, I think a lot of people in the eye field, that's why you go into it to help people, um, and you are helping people, but in a slightly different way. You're educating the people
Mm,
that
yeah,
need to know the stuff, which is
yeah,
just, puts you at a really high point in terms of where you are, the knowledge you gain, that you take your time to educate yourself and keep developing that knowledge, then disseminates to the people you are educating.
yeah.
um
And I think it's
and
showing the passion of it. That's important, if you can, and also for people to feel safe and secure and to ask any questions and not feel daft. And, I'm very much like that. If you don't know the answer to something, you don't want to feel stupid, but you don't want to be afraid of asking the question. So I think when you're teaching and you're educating people, you need to have a safe and secure environment to do so. And that's what I've always tried to apply when I was at TopCon. And then obviously that came over into Keeler. I mean, TopCon was crazy. Once I'd done my degree and I was training on ACT, I mean, probably people would say I'm a bit geeky around ACT. I definitely still love it. I still miss it, but I do love um, the way that people would just get a little golden nugget. If you were teaching them and you just see the reaction on their face when they just get something, they have that little light bulb moment. Oh God, it gives me so much pleasure. I love it. And that's the same
it
now with those products.
Yeah, very interestingly that you said passion for having it, and that's actually what I was just about to say. You're so passionate about education, and
Mm,
you really get behind your product, your you know to Topcon's loss is definitely Keeler's gain.
mm.
When you started with Keeler, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, and they had
No,
you
it
on
gives you. I
headsets,
was like,
you
help.
know yeah, and that was it. But you took your time, you came out, you could have easily have tried to fudge it, kind of thing,
No,
but you
not
came,
budget.
you sat, I gave you a very, very basic lesson in headset BIO. And then, but that only comes from someone who, that only people who are passionate about, they want to do what they are doing, what they want to do,
Yeah,
and want, want to be the best. They're the people who do that.
yeah,
Um, and that is very obvious in
yeah.
terms of whatever
And
you take on.
yeah, and I think for me, when I started at Keeler, and I'm quite open about this, Keeler had done education in the past, but the education that I'd sort of learned, and the way to educate from being at TopCon, was a very high standard at TopCon. So, the global team, the UK teams, like, all across Europe, they're very passionate about it. And that installed something in me. When I got to Keeler, it was really having a blank page for me. And at that point, I was Europe, Middle East and Asia clinical product specialist. So I got promoted to head of clinical education a year after I'd been at Keeler, actually. So I started in a Europe, Middle East and Asia role. And it was all the products that were there. So if you think we've got our handhelds, we've got our binocular indirects, people know the products, but they don't really know the ultrasound, cryotherapy, you know, tonometers. There's so much in our portfolio. And it was sort of bringing that to life a little bit, but also some of those products, are really clinical. How to teach binocular indirect. If I'd have walked in there and never touched one, so I came to you before I'd actually started, I think, because I was like, actually, can you, give me a bit of a heads up? And I did that with a lot of the kit because I was aware I was coming from TopCon, where I'd used all this kit and was very knowledgeable on it, was coming over to something where I didn't have necessarily all of those products in my mind. So it was completely different. And actually, some people, when I started, were like, what are you doing? Why are you going from TopCon to Keeler? It's crazy. Um, and yeah, maybe some would still say that today. But actually, for me, it was about the end user. It was about the patient because everyone needs training. And although those products may be simpler and not as technical, they still need help and support knowing how to use them. And massively students, and, it's not just about ophthalmology, actually. I've been in veterinary. I've been doing binocular indirects on animals, which I never thought I'd be doing on a dog. But anyway, it's fine. And yeah, and I think that's where it's come from. So I've built the education piece along with Shane in the US, and it's great. We've now got an education platform. We've got events. Yeah, it's busy.
So with the Keeler role, was that again something that you were looking for career development, or did
I think
someone
that
reach
was
out to
more,
you, or
yeah.
it
So
was
no,
just
that
you
was
needed a
more.
bit of a change?
Yeah, so that was more about, I saw it actually advertised, and I don't know, for one reason I didn't really think I would get it. I, again, wasn't really looking necessarily because anyone who knows me knows I love TopCon and I love the TopCon team, and no one ever thought I probably would leave, and I don't think I did either. But it was it was sort of global. It was a bigger role in the fact it was Europe, Middle East, and Asia. There was a bit of travel. It was more training the distributors. So it was a different role. Um, Graham, obviously, who I knew, and some of the guys who I knew from Keeler, I've known across the industry. Some of the guys I worked with at TopCon had come from Keeler. So I'd known the name, and yeah, I sort of went for it. Again, I think it was about having a go, and a bit of me testing whether I was capable of doing it. And it was probably pushing me out of my comfort zone. But I was also renowned for OCT, and I kind of wanted to push the boundary and see these are products I really don't know so much. I've really got to test myself again and getting involved in them and learning how to use them myself. So yeah, it was a bit of personal test as well. I spoke to Anna and Eddie, obviously, where mum and dad, they think, and they were like, well, actually, I think it's a good role. It'll be crazy, but don't believe you can't. So what did I do? Went over to her. She gave me a handset, so I've still got hers. Keeler handsets that she had from practice. So she gave them then to me, and I was practicing on her and in the living room shining the retinoscope against, and it's, yeah, I just love what I do here. And I just love teaching, and I love the industry and the people that it's opened my doors to meet, but also the fact that I've had a few optical assistants reach out and other people within the industry and gone, how have you got to where you're going, and what route did you take, and is there anything that I could do to help, me to do something similar, and if you've ever got a job, can I come and work for you, things like that. And that's really nice because I don't see myself necessarily as inspirational, but I do see myself as someone who really loves what they do and enjoys what they do. And I've always said the day that changed would be the day that I leave.
And that is a lovely place to almost finish, Nicola. I think that you've summed it up so well, and I almost feel bad now to have to ask you one more
Don't feel bad.
question.
You're okay.
But that was you've summed it up. You've summed it up really, really well. So what we normally ask people at the end of the pod is if you had to give some advice. Let's someone you've done it. You've said it. Someone who is not never planned on being in eyes, all of a sudden end up behind a reception desk, and they wish to aspire to other things beyond the reception desk, which is not an easy job. Um,
No,
um,
really not.
what advice would you give them? What would you say to them?
I think if they've got a little niggle and a little fire in their belly and they would like to do something else, then it's definitely worth exploring with their employers if the best option, what's out there for them. So, like I did the optical support practice, there's courses that you can do, and there's quite a lot now on like YouTube and things. I think just developing yourself internally for you, learning little snippets before you even go to a proper qualification is also something that helps. And just not to stop learning, you know. People tell you I'm always reading something. I'm always like, which makes me laugh because I definitely wasn't that person. I'm not even sure I was that person when I was doing my nursery nursing degree, actually. But yeah, it's, I think it's just picking up, not, people laugh at this because I'm not the most self-confident, but just trusting that there is a little bit of you that can do it. And believing in yourself a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I
That's
think
not the easy bit. That's
it's
the hard
hard.
bit. That's the
It's
hard bit.
hard. I mean, the amount of people who I talk to who are elite level optometry, ophthalmology in the
Mm.
industry, and the amount of times the term what is it, that term they use uh, when you think you're not in the good enough.
Yeah,
I can't remember what
basically
it is.
just imposter
Yeah, yeah,
syndrome.
yeah. Imposter syndrome. That's it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
number of
I think we
people
all
who
get that,
have.
right? I think that we all get that still. That's definitely something, you could be talking to someone, and I quite often said, "Why would people want to listen to me?" And I still to this day will say that I am an optical assistant because that is what I am. However, I've had a lot of knowledge come in and, degree and everything, but that's really where I would sit because I want to inspire others to do that. So, you know, it's great.
And
Happy
you do
job.
a great job of it, and that's why I needed you to be on the pod, not just because I needed episodes, Nikki, but also
Well, I'm fine. I'm happy
because
to step, happy to step in. I am your big sister. That is what I'm here for. So no worries at all. But
so
no, making
thank
friends
you
in the
ever so
industry
much.
is a big thing, right? So ones
Yeah,
that become like family are even better. So yeah, no, all good.
you are like family, and you do look after me, and I do appreciate it. And I know that you are busy, so I know you have to head off.
Yeah, I'm just about to
So I'm
train.
gonna
But yeah,
thank you very much,
no worries.
and have fun at Academy.
Yes,
And
yes. So
I will.
Academy
I
and then
don't.
VR Size next. So America and India in October.
And then I will see you when I see you. If we
Yeah.
do that training, let's see what
Yes.
happens.
Yes, I've just started that out. So yeah, that'll be good. So watch this space, I would say.
Perfect. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, Nikki. I will see you soon,
Okay.
and I will end there. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Take care. Bye.